Good evening, everyone. And today's webinar, we are going to be having with a conversation with Harsh Kataruka and Manoj Kumar Munagala. So both of whom are actually our classroom students. Manoj was our classroom student in the year of 2018, and Harsh was a classroom student in say 2019. And both of them have say 99 plus percentile in their ZAT examinations of 2020, and both of them have converted their calls for XLRI BM. So today we are going to be talking to them and understanding them how their journeys have been like. So before we say get into questions and interviews and all, can I get a brief sense of introduction from both of you, starting with Harsh? What was your academic profile like?
So sir, I'm a general male engineer and I'm also a fresher. So I guess not the best combination, but so I did my computer engineering from VIT Vellore, and my 10th score was 10 CGPA, 12th was 88%, and in UG I scored 8.7 CGPA. Coming to my extracurriculars, I was also part of about 4 clubs in VIT, and I participated in a competition in the US as well. And I did an internship in digital marketing in the summers of 2018.
Right. Okay. And same for you, Manoj, as well. Can you give a brief introduction of your academic and professional life?
Yeah. I'm also a general engineering male at GEM. So, and my 10th score is 91%. My 12th I did from state board. I got 94 there. And I did engineering from SRM and I scored 84 over there. And I have 1 year experience. I'm a software engineer at Nielsen. And coming to extracurricular, I won several tournaments in esports, and I have a Facebook group which has 2.7 lakh members.
Okay. So Manoj, which department of engineering did you graduate from?
Computer science.
Computer science as well. Okay, so both of you are computer science graduates, and you have worked in Nielsen as well, right?
Yes, for 1 year.
Okay, so Manoj, continuing the conversation with you, there are so many people who take CAT while they're working, and they also find juggling between the two, like working as well as preparing for CAT, actually quite a say bit of a task. So can you throw some light as to how you went about this process?
There's some difference between working and studying for CAT and being in college and studying for CAT, and it's not much bigger difference, to be honest. And what I used to do was I come home by 6 or 7 at the evening, and later in the night I used to find time, and I used to write mocks at Saturday, and I used to analyze it the next day on Sunday. So I used to get ample amount of time, to be honest. Yeah.
Okay, so say suppose on a per day basis, how much time do you think were you being able to say devote towards preparation?
I used to, on the weekdays, I used to spend like an hour revising topics or finding out new concepts and reading about new concepts. Other than that, I used to spend Saturday, I'll write mock for 3 hours and spend some time analyzing it. I used to spend more time on weekends.
Right. Okay. Got it. And same question to you as well, Harsh. So, managing your curriculum and then giving a semester examinations around the month of November and all that also is requires a bit of juggling on your part. So can you throw some light how you went about that?
So for me personally, it wasn't much of a hassle to manage both my academics and my preparation. And I've always enjoyed aptitude, and so the preparation was actually for me a fun ride. And I was able to devote time to it because, as you might know, engineers usually study for the exam one night before. So that was the same for me. And most of the time I could actually prepare for CAT and maybe give a day or two in a week for my academics. So right. I had a lot of time in my hand for preparations.
Okay. Also, Harsh, before CAT, you also gave the GRE, right? Because you were applying for the YLP program at ISB, and you scored a 325, which is a really good score, and that helped you secure a third stage call. Unfortunately, we could not convert it, but still, that is still a very good achievement. So can you tell me, how did that CAT preparation lead you towards your GRE score of 325? Did it help it, or was it very difficult to prepare for two different examinations separately?
So CAT preparation did help me a lot for my GRE preparations because I believe GRE is actually kind of a subset when it comes to preparations for it as compared to CAT. So for CAT, I had started my preparations around September of 2018, and it was not very much, but still I had an idea about the quants and verbal part. And hence I was able to apply those strategies towards my GRE. And it took me about 2 months to prepare for GRE, and I was able to do well, mostly because, yes, I had prepared for CAT beforehand.
Right. So 2 months of dedicated preparation towards GRE you think is actually sufficient towards pushing your score towards a 320 plus?
Yes, sir, definitely. Because quants was easy for me. It has been easy for me for CAT as well. So I did not give much time to quants, and verbal I did give about a month and a half. So I believe if you can give sufficient amount of time to both of these within these 2 months, you will be able to clear it with a pretty good score. And being able to clear with a good score actually gave me confidence for the upcoming CAT and SAT examinations as well.
Right, got it. So Manoj, so thinking about your journey has had a lot of ups and downs, right? Because you were a classroom student at the campus in 2018, and you were our topper. You were your Karela Chitamaram and OMS topper that year. You had 99.71 percentile in CAT. But unfortunately, you could not convert the big calls, right? So can you just throw light on what all big calls you had at 99.71 percentile?
I got calls from IIM Calcutta, IIM Kozhikode, Shillong, CAP, XLRA, IFT.
So all the big league colleges you had calls from.
Yes.
And unfortunately, the calls that you converted were not among the top of the level colleges, right? So can you tell us that must have been, say, quite a bit of a disappointment, right? Like after getting 99.71, which is a really, really good percentile in CAT, and then not being able to convert a great call. So what was the thought process after that particular year? How did you deal with it? And how did you motivate yourself for CAT 19 and then SAT 20?
Yes. After seeing my score, I was pretty confident that I would clear out any of my calls and any of the calls which I wanted from those top 10. But unfortunately, I couldn't, and I was shocked. I could see myself that one by one I got rejecting, and that was very devastating for me. And I took it hard. Actually, I took it hard. I didn't go outside for a few days. I started playing games. I used to spend wasting time. But it took me a few days to realize that you don't need even if you fail many times, you just have to succeed once. Even if it doesn't matter in the long run that how many times you got rejected. It only matters that where you got selected. That's what differentiates you. So I picked myself, but to be honest, I got confidence only after going into the job. As a person, I was a bit passive, which was the reason I felt that I was being rejected. But working in Nielsen, I found out that I was more participating and I was not as passive as what I thought. That gave me confidence for the next interview calls and then for preparing CAT.
Right.
That's what kept me motivated. Yeah.
And CAT 19 also, I remember we had a conversation, I think one night before the examination, and we were talking about what is the next day going to be like. And then you said that you would give me a call back after the paper and let me know how that paper went. But I remember not receiving a call from you. And I realized that probably you were disappointed because I think CAT 19 did not match up to the 99.71 standard that you had set in the previous year, right? So what was your CAT percentile in 2019?
It's 97. 96.8,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's 96.8. So what was the realization? Like, is it, so do you think that it is possible for people to consistently get 99.7, 99.7, 99.7 every time? Or do you think that the day of the examination kind of plays some kind of a role?
It is possible that percentile can differ. My preparation wasn't low, I could not say. That was ample enough as I gave CAT earlier and had a good score. I was confident, but sometimes things don't work out. And the day I could not work on LR, I could not solve some sets, which I thought I could, and kept on juggling. And I was nervous, and finally that made me score low in LR, and that nervousness carried on for QA, and I was good at QA, so that extra boost I did not get that.
Right. Okay, so coming back to Harsh. So Harsh, can you tell me how much time did you dedicate towards preparing for ZAT specifically?
Sir, for ZAT, I specifically started preparing only after my SNAP examination, which I think was December 15th, if I'm not mistaken. So I gave about 18 to 20 days for ZAT, specific preparation for ZAT, about 18 to 20 days.
So what do you think people need to focus on extra, apart from whatever you have studied and prepared for CAT? What do you think extra needs to be done? And is 15 to 18 days sufficient for, say, an average student?
Definitely, sir. I had prepared for CAT pretty well. So that carried on with ZAT as well. Now coming to ZAT specifically about OA and verbal. So that's quants and verbal. You don't need any specific preparations other than what you've done for CAT already. there's a section called decision making, which is completely new and which is not present in any of the papers. So the 18 to 20 days that I gave was pretty much for that. And so decision making does require some amount of time and effort after all the exams have been done. So I'll suggest for anyone who's trying it to give the time you have after all the exams to decision making specifically.
So can you tell us what all resources and how did you go about preparing for the DM section of the paper?
So DM section, the first thing that I did was take a mock just to see what kind of questions were there and how I could fare them, given whatever preparations I had from earlier exams. And I did not do well. So what I started to do was, there were some videos on our aspiration account from Gautam Puri sirs. So I looked up those videos and I went through the questions that he was solving just to try to understand the thought process of it. And what I realized was that decision making could be an ambiguous section, in the sense that the options that we have could be correct. More than one option could be correct in terms of rationality. But what XLRI looks for is the options, is one of those options could be ethically and morally correct. So what I had in mind was that I used to put myself in the shoes of the person that was in the question and try to understand what the best response to that particular question would be. And that's how I went about it.
Right. So Manoj, same question to you. So what's the amount of time required for ZAT preparation after you're done with CAT prep?
Yeah, I started preparing that only after I gave my CAT and after my IFT, I guess. So it's enough that, as he said, Harsh said, the QA and VA is almost common for CAT and ZAT. So what I had to do was specifically prepare for decision making. And I did the same. So I looked at the old papers first, had a look at it, how it is. And it's a dicey section. It's very tricky. So I looked into the solution, watched few videos, understood why. I understood, try to analyze that why is that the answer, and where do I go wrong? Where is my thought process going wrong? I used to analyze that, and slowly my performance got improving.
So mostly 15 to 18 days of dedicatedly looking at the DM section is what is actually crucial for ZAT if you have prepared for CAT properly, right? Okay. So
yes, that's ample amount.
Okay. So also people have this perception that ZAT is a tougher paper than CAT. Right. So Manoj, do you think that ZAT is actually quantitatively tougher? And is there any different strategy that is required on the day of the examination when you're giving ZAT as opposed to CAT?
Tougher in terms of questions, I would say yes, but you get more amount of time. I would say ZAT is like a test match where CAT is like an ODI, you could say, and ZAT you can switch between sections, right? So you can play to your strengths. If you're good at QA, you can always spend more time on QA. Only thing you need to take care is that there are sectional cutoff, and the sectional cutoff for ZAT is I could say more difficult to clear all those cutoffs than CAT. So you should keep more focus on clearing the sectionals first and then play to your strengths.
Right. So same question to you as well, Harsh. So what do you think is the strategy difference between CAT and ZAT on the day of the examination?
So personally, I did not choose any different strategy for CAT as compared to ZAT. I had in mind that I would start with verbal first and then end with quants, and that is what I was doing with CAT as well. And so I kept it simple and straightforward. There were some inherent differences within the paper, such as no time limit for any particular section or the option to choose any section which you wanted to attempt first. But I kept it simple and I gave equal time to all the sections, and that's how I attempted ZAT as well.
Right. Okay. So now moving on from the the part of the examination, let's talk about the GDPI experience. So Harsh, as a fresher, when you say go to these kind of interviews, you have actually gone for several different interviews, including that of XLRI. So what do you think is the main thing that XLRI tests? And as a fresher, do you think that you were at a significant disadvantage as compared to someone else who has experience?
So regarding the interview, I would not think that I was at any disadvantage as being a fresher as compared to someone with work experience, because the interview usually revolves around the profile and the kind of person I was. For almost all of my interviews, it was the same. And coming to the XLRI interview, it was a little bit different from what I had previously, because it revolved around the places that I had stayed at and the kind of cultural differences I had seen. in these places. So talking to a lot of people, what I realized was the interviewers basically look for three things: that is confidence, your ability to think on your feet, and your ingenuity. So what everyone said to me was we need to be truthful to them and just say things which really happened to us or really happened in our lives, and not try to bluff, because they have been there for a number of years, and they can actually catch us in a bluff if we don't do it properly. So I would suggest people to just retrospect whatever has happened in their life, and uh, just check out the questions that have been there in the interviews previously and create answers based on that.
Right. Okay. So same question, Manoj. What was your experience like? What was the GDP experience like in XLRI?
Yes, XLRI was a bit different for me as well, and I had my past experiences from the last year. I knew where I went wrong. I focused on that, and I improved on that. But XLRI went differently, and my GD topic was also like an ethical question. And I feel the same way what Harsh felt, that they were more looking about our personality, and they know that we are smart enough as we cleared the cutoffs, but that doesn't make us the suitable candidate. So what they were looking for was how a personality, and how do we think ethically. So my whole interview was more based on ethical questions. They tried to cross question me when I answered, and and also that from different places I came from. I'm actually from Jamshedpur, so we talked about Jamshedpur a lot. Yeah.
Right. So do they test knowledge of, say, current affairs or technical knowledge of your subjects that you've studied in your academics and curriculum as well?
They do, but it depends on. It is different for different people. But they did ask me about my favorite subject, and they do test your knowledge, and even your GK score matters. Suppose if you get a low score in GK, they could test it out whether the score determines whether you are aware of things going on around you.
Right. Okay. So once again, coming back to you, Harsh. So can you tell us some extremely interesting questions that you faced in these art interview, and the question which you think you enjoyed answering and which you think put a good sense of impression on the minds of the interviewers?
One of the questions that my XLR interviewers asked me was about the education development in Delhi as compared to Vellore, where I was currently staying. And since I had been part of an NGO and I had taught kids in the primary schools, I knew that there were differences among in the kind of education that was provided over there versus what was provided here. So we talked a lot about that, and we kind of tried to figure out how we could improve on that going forward. So this was pretty impressive, I believe, and they actually liked me for this.
So a lot of sense of self-awareness and your morals and ethics are actually tested and talked about it during the interviews as far as XLRA is concerned, right?
Yes, sir, definitely. The interview could go either way depending on how you drive it. But for me, the experience has been about the personal experiences and the kind of moral obligations and ethics that I follow.
Right. Okay. So finally, to conclude today's interview, so I'd like to know what kind of suggestions, what kind of motivations do you have that you want to share with the future aspirants? Starting with you, Harsh.
So I would like to talk about two things. First is that every aspirant needs to find the reason why they want to do an MBA. I've seen a lot of people drop the motivation after a few months of preparation, and primarily the reason was they did not know what was the reason of them doing an MBA. So I would suggest everyone to kind of figure out the reason and hence derive the motivation from there. And the second thing that I would want to talk about is that a lot of people kind of overthink things. So, for example, if you need, for example, people would think about the percentile they need to score to get a call. It doesn't matter. Just try to focus on getting a high percentile and keep it simple. Create a strategy, create a timeline, and stick to it. And eventually, you would be able to score a good percentile, a good enough percentile to be able to score a call from the top colleges.
Okay. So keep things simple and just focus on what is need to be done right now in that moment, and don't overthink things. Absolutely. Yes. Okay. And Manoj, same question to you. So because you have given, say, this examination twice, so any words of encouragement for people who are repeating their attempts at these
Yes,
papers?
yes. Yeah. Even while preparing as well, I've seen students who get so demotivated seeing their cat percentile in career launcher and any other mocks. And what I want to say is, I've seen people who have moved from 30 percentile to 99, and it is possible. You can always improve. The main thing you should focus on is the concept, not the different models or how you do it. If you are strong at the concept, you can on the spot you can think and find out how you could do that. So, and I would say write lot of mocks, find out what strategy suits you. It suits everyone does it differently, and try spending more time on analyzing where you go wrong, so that next time that doesn't happen again.
Right. Okay, so thank you so much, Manoj. Thank you so much, Harsh, for coming and doing this with us and saying all your words of motivation for the future aspirants. And all the very best for your future journeys, and have a great MBA.